HGA Fundraising, HGA Bid. We've got Morgan Hughes, special guest today, who's the Senior Customer Success Advocate for HGA Bid, which is our software division. And she's going to have some really keen experience share, as well as, of course, a real healthy Q&A from you all about hybrid events. And it's kind of a macro topic, obviously, if you're in the fundraising space, but it's something where we have some best practices and we have some things to share, as I'm sure you all do. And then, of course, we're just going to define it. What is a hybrid event? And most importantly, why you can reach a larger audience and why it's important to employ a hybrid event in your annual fundraising strategy. So, Jason, you want to kick us off? Just give us the 30,000 foot view.
Thank you guys so much. I do want to say that everybody stay to the end. If you're a nonprofit, we do a drawing at the end of every webinar. And so for a free experience that you can use for your next fundraising event to help you raise more money. But, I just want to just say a year ago, really a year and a month, a little over that, we didn't have, nobody ever really thought about a hybrid event. There was no such thing. It wasn't, or a virtual event or anything like that. And we've spent the last year going through this, this crazy pandemic and trying to survive and trying to figure out how to do it and doing virtual events. And, Morgan and I worked a virtual event together right at
I want to say like March,
beginning of the pandemic. Yeah, it was April. It was actually right like the first week of April.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a different deal. And it was a completely different experience for us to do. And fortunately, the nonprofit had done a lot of groundwork and it was very successful. But as time went on, things started getting really changing. And now we've seen it swing back. And we were also really fortunate to work together on some hybrid events right at the end of last year. I live in Oklahoma. For those of you who don't know, haven't been on here, they're new. Morgan and I are in Oklahoma City, and our headquarters for HGA Fundraising is in Redding, California, which is where Trevor's coming from. But we had this whole thing, we started doing these things called a hybrid event, where we had, because of smaller capacity, and, you could only have 100 people in the room or 50 in the room or whatever that number happened to be at the city that you currently live in. But we also were trying to broadcast it. And it is a different animal altogether, sort of. And that's what we want to do, is maybe give some experience share here today. We don't have a bunch of slides like we normally do. I hope you've got something to write with, take notes. Again, hey, Tony, how are you? Glad to have you here. And Susan, thank you for joining us, guys. Everybody, just real glad to have y'all. We do record this, by the way, so we'll be sending this out to you afterwards. So if there's something that you miss, we'll also send an audio so you can listen to it again. But, just write down some notes, because one of the things that I want to say about a hybrid event, it's not a virtual event, okay? It is not a virtual event. For the third time, it's not a virtual event. And we're real fortunate because we talk to people all over the country that are doing lots of different things. Some are doing full-on live events, some are doing still in virtual, and some are doing hybrids already. And what we've seen, and I think Morgan will, we'll get some her experience share, doing these hybrid events, it's really hard to transition back, because you went and you said, all of a sudden we had this big AV production. Maybe we had a big green screen, set up with all this different stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, and we tried to figure out, well, we've got to have somebody that knows what they're doing in front of a camera, because there is a difference between being on stage and working in front of a camera. It's significantly different. And now we go back to doing a hybrid event, and we're thinking, well, do we still need an auctioneer that's got a lot of camera experience, or is it okay if, he or she has just been on the stage? How do we deal with that? And so really what my first thing is a hybrid event is simply a live event that is being broadcast. That's what it is. And if you start from that perception, and we're going to have a lot of Q&A, so if you've got questions, please ask them. We fire away, so we want to get to it. Because what we've seen is having that in the trying to have this broadcast, it's really a deal, because what's going to happen is the auctioneer, whoever's up there doing the fundraising, the MC, whatever you've got, they're going to be talking to the group and the crowd and the people in there. This is like the true reality TV series, is really what it comes back to being. Everybody who's sitting back, watching at home. And we do know this, that 80% of the people are going to be using their cell phone. That's how they watch if they watch virtually or from, it's a hybrid event, they'll watch it on their cell phone, not on a big screen and not doing all this stuff. And I'm trying to kind of articulate this in a way that makes sense. So hopefully it comes across that way. You've got to really, it becomes, that's what they want to tune into. They want to see the event. Why do people go to a live event? To raise money and to be seen. Why in the world would you go get a new dress, get your hair, get a mani-pedi, get a blowout on your hair? I know, because my wife does that stuff, and I get a blowout every time. Just kidding. But you see all that, people want to go and see and be seen. So the cool thing is, if somebody's tuning in remotely, they can do that. They can be there. One of the things that we see that is, people don't necessarily want to tune in for a 3-hour show online. So keep those things in mind, that what part are you going to broadcast? Are you going to broadcast the whole thing, or are you just going to simply bring people that are in virtual world online, and then have the fundraising portion, the mission drive, and then thank them and move on, and let everybody else that's there live go back to the party, and the people that are home go on about what it is. They could be out walking their dog and joining virtually. So we just see that a lot of those are things that we do. This other thing that I want to bring up, and then I'd love to start getting questions, because we've got Morgan here. She's got a lot of experience working with a lot of different events around the country, is questions that you guys have, or things that you're doing, or whatever that you've got coming up, because this is a really unusual topic. But the other thing is, we've also seen nonprofits go spend an inordinate amount of money on AV for a hybrid event that they didn't need. So one of the things that comes up to mind is we did a hybrid event, one of the very first ones we did. And I'm going to bring you back on here, Trevor, so that way everybody can see you. And if guys, just so you know, if you go up to view on the right-hand side and click gallery, you'll be able to, I should be locked on either way, so you see everybody, but that way you should see all three of us. But what I'm going to try to say, the first hybrid event I did, they had 2 cameras set up. They had all this audio visual equipment and everything over, and they had like this camera sitting over on the side that people could go and talk to and make all this stuff, and nobody used it. It was absolutely a waste of money that was never used. And so that's where I wanted to say is, make sure that whatever you put out there, whenever you're talking to them, because you're going to get all excited and you're going to say, hey, let's have a camera that we can have mobile. Let's have a camera that we're going to have fixed. Let's have a camera at the stage, and we're going to do all this stuff. Make sure that you've got a plan for it. Here's a great example. Another example, we did another event, and Morgan remembers this well. We get to the venue. We have a plan. The plan was that we have a fixed camera that is going to be set up on the stage for the auctioneer. There was a second camera that was available, and they were going to use that camera to go around and spotlight all the live auction items and do that preview throughout the night, talk to people and do stuff. The museum where we were doing the event nixed it, said, we cannot do it because you cannot have a cord. I mean, the lady, they were very militant about it, and said, you cannot be dragging a cord around. Somebody might trip and fall and I'll be liable. And it was just absolutely not going to happen. So you've got to be ready for that stuff. So what we did was we set the camera up separately, and then they would go and I say we, the people that doing the event, they would get the different groups that were going to come speak, and they would bring them over there. Now, all this said and done, they did this. They had 110 people in the room. And how many were live on? How many were tuning in on that event, Morgan? Do you remember?
Around like 80 to 100, something like that. I mean, it was about 50-50.
So in that one, they had about 50-50. But flip to another event that we did. Again, they spent all this money doing all this stuff to tune people in, and they had like 23 people tune in virtually. They got 120 people in the room and 15 virtually, and they spent, $15,000 to have 15 people, whatever bid. And they did sell some stuff, and they raised some money online. But I guess I want you to really be thinking about that, how you go about it. So, hey, I hope there's some cute questions, because otherwise I'll just keep going. But anybody have a question? Anybody haven't deal, or if you're thinking about it, let us know.
or if you have a hybrid event coming up, say in the next 30 days or 2 weeks, and there's anything
Yeah.
that we can help.
Okay.
Mary
Mary
Jean-
Jean said, what's the best suggestion for AV then? So
Yeah.
this is what I've seen work really well is one is the camera needs to be set up where it's at the stage, and that's not the focal point. So they can see the auctioneer, they can see the person speaking, they can do that. The AV company have a single camera. That's plenty. And then, get by with as little as you can. Don't go for all the extra stuff. Most AV companies are going to, sit there and have, start spending your money. And it really depends. I mean, if you're restricted for some reason, which I know a lot of the restrictions are being pulled, but if you're restricted to, let's say 100 people in the room and you've got to do it, then what you've got to do, the people that are not going to be there, is get on the phone and start calling and saying, I need you to make sure that you're going to tune in. Please, Trevor, hey, you've been great to be a supportive. I know that you're not going to be able to be in person, but I need you to make sure that at 7:30 you're ready to come in, because I need you to come and spend some money and making those calls. So Mary Jean, I don't have a best scenario, but less is more. A few things that you do need for your AV, if you're going to be hybrid, is one. Okay. So your question is, if you are streaming, how does the live camera interface with that? So there's a few different ways that we've seen it done. Our system has an integrated streaming setup to it. So it streams right into the software, but we also see people use YouTube and Vimeo. Do not do it on Facebook if you want people to interact, because the delay is going to be 1 minute to 3 minutes behind what you're doing. So they're not going to be able to bid in any real time or anything like that. It's,
My
you start trying to get people
YouTube
to
is the way to go too, just because
Yeah.
everyone knows YouTube.
YouTube is really easy. Our system has it built in. So, and I'm not trying to sell you on our system, because if you've already got your software with somebody else, and I think a few of them are starting to get there where it's all integrated in, but just remember, they're going to be flipping back and forth. So you got to talk about that. But what we've seen from experience is you need to have, from a minimum, have one camera, a confidence monitor, or a display that the auctioneer can see. So what I mean by that is, if I'm up here auctioning off and I'm out here to the room, if I've got a monitor right down in front of me, and if you use confidence monitor, they'll know what it is, that's broadcasting, I can see those virtual bids as they come in. And so I can see those donations as they come in, and I can say, thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Eileen, and make those comments, even though it's online. Or if I'm auctioneering and I'm auctioning, I've got, two people that I can see, like I can see Morgan and Trevor, and I'm sitting there, I'm auctioning off, and it's, 1,000, 1,250, 1,500, 1,750, $2,000. And all of a sudden, Alicia bids, and I go, oh, Alicia's in virtual land and she's here, 1,750, now $2,000. Okay, Morgan, Trevor, you guys are out. Having that name gives the auctioneer a lot of confidence, because if he just sees a bid out there, or she sees a bid out there in Never Never Land, it doesn't have the same effect as if I look in the camera and say that. Now, they're not going to be just looking in the camera. They're going to be auctioneering. And so.
Question. We have a question real quick, Jason, and tips for both you and Morgan, of course. Lisa's from Oklahoma, and she's just tips on evaluating whether or not to do a hybrid event on the front end. Oklahoma's pretty open, she says.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this is what I think about hybrid events and what they can do. Number one is, I think it's great to do even if you're having a live event, because it opens up the door to a whole new group of donors. Because there's a whole group of donors out there who may not be able to spend $3,000 on a table, or they're not going to get invited to the party by somebody who can't afford the $3,000, or it's a $200 ticket, but they care about your cause. One of the ways that we've seen this really expand really well are like schools. And I don't know what your organization is, but it really depends on your donor base. So like schools are a great example. You see a school that has this, they've got alumni all over the country. We see this with some universities, some fundraising doing that. It's a school foundation. Okay, perfect. So you've got alumni who are all over the country. Okay. Or potentially all over the country. They're probably not going to be able to get on a plane from in Florida, make the trip back to Oklahoma to come to the live event. It just doesn't work that way. But if they get a link that says we want to invite you to attend this virtually, they're more one is they can tune in to see what's going on. Two, they can participate, make donations, and be part of the show because they want to see what's going on, because they have a vested interest in that. They want to see the school continue to grow, continue to do well. Maybe they've got a cousin, a niece, nephew. That's another great way. If you've got kids, because we know the number one donor to schools are people, typically in private schools, high schools, public schools for that matter, are parents. Well, if Morgan's got her little boys in school, and just so y'all know, Morgan's my daughter. And she's about to have my first grandson. So,
you would have never known, Jason. Come on.
Well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I have two questions.
Well, let me finish this one, and I'll get to that question.
Yep.
So the point to that is when you do it, is there an audience out there that I want to reach other than the people that are inside the room, that I can get inside the room? That's how you answer the question, whether it's worth to go through the expense and the additional setup, the cost of doing it. It's a math issue. If I can get that out and get an extra, $25,000 of donations, and it's going to cost me $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000 to do it, sure, that's a trade-off I'd make. But if it's going to cost me $15,000, to get it all set up to do all this, and I'm not really sure, you've got to ask yourself a question. Is this worth it? Is the potential to have, those extra donations? Does it make sense?
At that point, it's all about opportunity cost at that point, and it really depends on your reach, right? That's important. We happen to be pretty bullish on the fact that it reaches more people, and that's the design. But that being said, got a couple of questions, Jason. Tim Campbell asks, how many hybrid events have we done with a live auction where people are bidding in person and remotely? Well, I'll answer that part, Tim. We kind of play so many different roles by offering, items for events. And of course, we provide software and do the streaming and all that good stuff. So we've been in, quite a few, as a matter of fact. That being said, though, Tim's question, Jason, is, does it mean that everyone has to be registered online to bid versus raising their hands or raising a paddle? This is a really good question, actually, I think. So,
So let me tell you how we've seen it done really well and where we've seen it, in that. So it depends upon the software. Our software is HGA Bid. So you can, go to hjbidonline.com. And if you have some questions, we're not here pushing that one way or the other. We have a really unique piece in the platform where we can do a live auction virtually. So actually somebody in real time can bid the amount that's the auctioneer is asking for. And if I'm selling at $1,000, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and then I change and go to, 3,500, well, 3,250, would you give 3,100? We can actually in real time change it so the person remotely can bid that way. We also are able to bid, and most everybody can do this to some degree, where actually somebody that's live in the room. So if I'm auctioning, to answer that question, is yes, you can do both of them, and you should. So the live auction, and I've had some people say, well, it didn't go so well. More times than not, it's not because of the software, the auction software, it's the streaming platform that's the problem. The streaming is behind. So our streaming is less than 2 seconds. We use Millicast as the underlying platform for that. But that's why Morgan was talking about use something like YouTube if you don't have that, that you can keep it around 3 or 4 seconds. And then the auctioneers just got to know. So let me give you an example. I think this is a great example that we can use for this, and I'll answer this question. There was an event that we supported with our software, and we had some items in it and stuff like that, but it was with our software. And just so you guys know, Morgan is one of our customer success advocates. She's our lead when it comes to doing these online events and running the software and everything. And she was in the room. She was actually on site. Normally she does it virtually. If somebody's in like Atlanta or something like that, we don't fly people around the country for that because it costs too much. And we had to learn how to do it this way during COVID. But what we do is the auctioneer is the auctioneer. Just let them do their thing. Don't get in the way. we want to tell them to slow down, let that bid come in online to let all this stuff catch up, and they'll understand that. But like the auctioneer, I told him, I said, hey, Rick, I said, when you're auctioning, don't start doing 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, stuff like that. Morgan, what's the very first thing that he did?
1, 3, 5, 7, 9.
He starts auctioning.
Because that's his style, though. Like he's able to.
That's his fun, and that's fine. That's fine. But what we've realized was it didn't matter, because whenever he landed on 5, the virtual bid was on 5. When he landed on the even numbers, Morgan was able to stay up with him and do that. And he would pause. People could make that bid online. And the number one, then actually the highest item that sold that night was virtual for $9,000. So it was done virtually. And so it works. And he never did anything other than looked at the monitor, and he'd say, Morgan, do we have anybody out there bidding? And just went with it. And it worked really well. So,
and he even told me at the end, he's like, and I think this is what every auctioneer has been telling me, if there's money in the room, they're going to go chase it then. They're not, I mean, virtual is so great and it's awesome, but an auctioneer is always going to be like, hey, you want to spend money? And they're going to try to raise it right then, especially if they can get that energy going. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to raise $10,000, not, $25 here or there. I don't know. So that's just what he,
yeah. And it's a really great point, because just let them do their thing. And yes, you can have people raising. So like our software, you don't have to put number 75 because that person's in the room. We just put a proxy bid in. So our setup is just a proxy bid as the going. So if I'm auctioning at, 500, 600 with Trevor, 700 with Morgan, 800, 900 virtually. Well, every time they're just pushing a button, just moving the bid up remotely. So that way on the virtual screen, I hope this explains it, but it's just a proxy bid. And then whenever I say sold number 75, that's when we would enter that in. And most of the software is going to work that way. So they can take a proxy bid. I'll tell you right now, just because you're doing it hybrid, do not think that you can't use bid paddles. I highly recommend always using bidder numbers, bid paddles, whatever it is you want to do to show that number. Don't expect people just to pull their phone out and do it. If they're virtual, obviously they don't have a choice, but people in the room, I don't want people looking down at their phone trying to bid. I want them looking at the auctioneer. I want them looking up there to see there to be part of it. So I hope that helps. Okay.
Janice has a couple questions. Janice De Silva has a couple questions. She has a gala coming up in September, typically draws about 600 to 700 guests. And she wants to keep both the virtual and live audience engaged during the event, but she's not sure how to anticipate how many will be live versus virtual. That's a really tough question, yes. Mm-hmm. Any suggestions to keep in mind as she balances how much to invest, time and money, obviously resources, in the virtual production if she's unsure how many folks are going to be tuning in? Any suggestions? You're like, what is the most
so it's a great question.
Yes.
We kind of talked about it before. Less is more. If you're going to have something live and you're going to have the event and you're thinking, well, you're going to know via RSVP how many people are going to come in, doing that as you go and sell tables. And as I say, and say this more and more after this last year, you need to have 70% of your money raised before you walk in the door and start the event. I don't care how great of an auctioneer you are. I don't care how awesome your items are. You still need to get those sponsorships, underwriting, those mission drive commitments before that. You just wait, because before I'd say maybe 50%. If you had 50%, if you're trying to raise 100,000, you had $50,000 before you started the event, you got a good chance to get there. Mm-hmm. But now you need to have about 70 of it. Now that said, the auctions that we're seeing go live are doing fantastic. I mean, we're the clients we have that we're participating with are having ecstatically great success. Mm-hmm. But don't count on that. I mean, the reason that they're having such great success because they're picking up the phone and they're calling and said, "Hey, Bonnie, hey, I know that all this crazy stuff I want to see. Are you going to be at the event? I need you to show up and bring it, fill your table up with people that can all write checks because we're trying to raise $100,000. And by the way, could I get you to give me a $5,000 sponsorship to underwrite the software, underwrite the technology or the software or whatever besides being the table." All that kind of stuff has to happen before. So even more so now. And
But
I
back to
just
the
think that that's
question,
really
like,
good.
I
Follow-up
like
question.
focusing a lot on the live event because people are like my latest client, they have their event starts tomorrow and it's like a conference and stuff. They are ready to get out and it's a live event, and even the girls working the event, they're like, we're ready to get dressed up and go be around people and everything. So I would focus most of it on the live portion because, you know, things are opening up, but you are going to have the moms that have to stay at home, the autoimmune people that, you know, they just feel more comfortable being at home. So it's cool just to have a camera, like Jason said, have it on the screen so they can watch, maybe have it live on YouTube. And then they can participate in the fund a need part. They can still be a part of it. Or if you have an online, you know, silent auction or something like that, but even just being able to watch and say, oh my gosh, that's so cool. You guys are raising money for this school and I'm able to give $100 or whatever it is. They still feel like they can be a part of it.
Perfect.
Yeah, people want to get outside. So again, the reason that you're doing the virtual piece is for those people that might have a, you know, they either they're not quite ready to get out.
Mhm.
They have there's some reason that they're not going to get out. They're not going to come to it live because given the choice, what we're seeing just based on the events that we're seeing around the country that are opened up in the communities, they're packing them out. I mean,
Yeah.
600-700 people easy.
However, though, of course, the whole idea as well, the impetus for so much of this was to
Yes.
reach a broader audience.
Yes.
Could be 2,000 miles away, you know? So I think there's also that reality. I think that's really, really smart. Janice had a follow-up question. Is it better to open the virtual event up to a wide audience and engage them in the giving opportunities, or to charge for access to do the events? Another good question by Janice.
Okay. In April, May of last year, we really didn't know, and you could get away with charging for access to your event and maybe do something.
Yeah.
Now, don't charge them anything. If somebody's going to come in person and be there in person, then do it. If they're not, do not. I don't recommend charging access to anything because, you know, it's that person that maybe they just see an email, they get it on social media, they tune into the event, and they wind up becoming your next $10,000 donor because they hear the mission drive, they see what's going on. So don't put any roadblocks up to let them do it. What I do suggest is, you know, don't just be freewheeling with, you know, let that come and make them register, you know, because they can still register to bid, they can still go on there. But also maybe somebody just wants to see what's going on. Give them that opportunity during the production to say, hey, you know, you guys out there in virtual land, text 123 to whatever the number is, or go to blah, 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 this at www.raisemoremoney.com and, you know, sign up for our event. We'd love to have you participate. Oh, thank you so much. By the way, you know, such and such virtually just donated $500. So you do that during the event, give them the opportunity to do it. But I don't believe in charging people for access to something that I want them to engage in. So again,
we don't want to add friction. We want to remove friction.
Yeah, remove friction because people are, you know, they're going to show up to the event again. They're going to spend money on the dress, the new dress, getting their hair, nails done. Guys are going to get their tux cleaned, get some new shoes, suits, things like that. So, you know, but don't put that, because there may be somebody out there that they got nothing better to do and they sit there, and it's kind of like when you go to watch a video and you got to put something in. If all they got to do is click on a link and start watching, that may be your next huge donor.
So it looks like Tony asked what platform we are using.
Mm-hmm. So our platform, Tony, is HGA. It's our own. It's HGA Bid. And we did this. We got in the deal last year, kind of when everything happened. And the reason that we wanted to do that was because we wanted to have something that had streaming integrated on the screen, because we saw that people were flip-flopping back and forth, and it back to being friction. It created friction. So, you know, we really like it. It's easy, and I'll do it. We do the work for you. So we load the items, we do all the back end, we build it out, because what we saw, especially last year, is less staff, volunteers. All of a sudden, you know, we're trying to go raise $100,000 and we've got half the staff to help with it. Now you've got, you know, I'm just going to pick somebody off the deal. So Diana, she had 3 volunteers that were doing all the technology before, and now all of a sudden it's stuck on her, and she's having to load all the items up. And what may take somebody 3 days Morgan can do in, a couple of hours. And we actually become a virtual assistant throughout that process. It's just kind of the way we like to say it. So I hope that helps. And
Yeah. Well, it's
about
like
our service.
necessity is the mother of invention as well. So we had clients that were asking us for it, right? So we decided to we partnered up to bring it to market, and it's been really, really splendid ever since. It's very interesting because Alicia had a question that they did their first hybrid event, and it was very successful, but it was fly by the seat of your pants, and that's what everyone was kind of experiencing.
Everyone last year was fly by the, because we didn't know.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
everyone was figuring it out together.
Well, and I think that I think people underestimated their mission drive and the impact that their donors had.
Yeah.
People that picked up the phone and, giving last year was up 2.8% in the United States nationwide. Charitable giving up 2.8%. A lot of people were afraid to ask because, well, gosh, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Somebody got laid off. Maybe our mission, maybe that, people are more interested in giving to that. Well, it's actually the opposite. If they cared before, they cared now.
Maybe even more so.
And they care, they still care. So
just because I'm struggling or my people got laid off because of the industry, they might be doing okay still. Their industry might not have been touched by COVID. So,
and people want to get engaged. So, I'm going to take Alicia's question if that's okay, Trevor.
I want you both. I actually want you both.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to bring that to Morgan and just. So Morgan, Alicia said we're very new to using technology of any kind, let alone a hybrid with an event. We had our first ever virtual auction last year. Raise your hand if that last year was the first for you, which was very successful, but it was very fly by the seat of our pants. Where do we start for us to have a successful online and live presence? So what would you say to that, Morgan?
So I think getting the message out to your people is super important. I know with a lot of our clients, we say, hey, give me a list of everyone in your donor base. Or get that together because you have it. Anyone that's given you money or has been to an event or whatever, and you're just going to send them out, your email and say, hey, we're having this silent auction. And if you have a specific goal, that really helps. So if you're like, hey, we're going to raise money to build this school over in Africa, it's for these girls that do this and that or whatever. And you make it very specific. And so one, it's going to pull the heartstrings of those people that really, care about not just your mission, but that specific thing. And then you just get the message out and then you remind them, say, hey, tomorrow's the big day. We're going to start our live auction start our online auction at 12 PM. Click here to get on it. And it doesn't have to be like our software, like Jason said, if you can use a texting platform and you can send them that message, or even if it's in an email link, because what I've seen, it's kind of 50-50 too. Some people like the email, some people like the text message, some people like push notifications. It just depends on whoever's opening it. So if you can cover all the bases, that's even better. Because like me, if I get a text, I'm going to read it. If I get an email and it's like, that's just not my age group, I guess, like we prefer text over that. So just depending on that. So getting the message out, keeping it in front of them, and then just pushing on one button. Hey, open this link right now. That way you can see all of our auction items. I think that really helps and it makes a difference. Like the less hoops, the better. And
one of the things that I see people doing is they start doing their virtual event, they're doing their live event, and they've got a database of 5,000 people. You've got a database of 5,000, and sure, they're sending out the letter, but, they know the people that are always attending every year and they're following up with those. When you go virtual, it gives those people that have never come to an event, they've been giving you $25 a month for the last 10 years or $25 a year or something like that. It gives them a chance to participate in a way that they've never been able to engage. Because, they get that letter at the end of the year and they send you a $25 check. Going virtual and having having a virtual option for your live event makes them feel special. They feel invited because they probably they may not have the capacity to, get the formal gown, get the dress, get the deal, pay $200 a ticket, or they didn't get it, they're not invited to go to because of the tables. But they like seeing
have space for them. You don't have to buy them dinner. You don't have to provide entertainment.
Right.
Like it's all, you can invite a million people to your thing because there's space. So.
Yep. You're talking about inclusion and access now, right? That's the idea.
And that's the idea. We want to be equal opportunity receivers. And that's what the hybrid option does. It lets you open up. Mary Jean has a question about a
Yeah.
party box. Mary Jean, I'm going to tell you, we've seen everything. We've seen it where people that sponsored at a certain level got a case of wine. We've seen where people got, cheese trays and all this stuff. But this is what my honest feedback is. If people really care about your organization, if they, you want to do something on this, the thing, just acknowledging the fact that they're there, that they're participating is enough. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to make a difference whether somebody gives you $5,000 if you send them a case of wine or not. They're not giving for that reason. They're giving because they know that $5,000 is going to change the lives of somebody in that community, and it's a mission that's going to happen.
Right.
And I use this as an easy example. Let's say that you're in the world of camp. You have a camp for kids, and it's $1,000 to send a kid to camp. The $5,000 is not that I'm not giving you $5,000. I'm sending 5 kids to camp. You sending me a party box is not going to make a difference. Now, here's where it can become thoughtful and where you don't have to oversell it. Send something fun. If you want to send, I call it chunky mail, where you send like something kind of cool, and, it's a blinky ring or a little, horn to toot or something like that. And you say, hey, we want you to do this, and take a picture with your blinky ring on and text it to, a number, or hashtag it on Instagram or something. And then you show those pictures online, and you show them to everybody that's in the crowd to say, hey, we want to give a big shout out to everybody that's in virtual land here. And everybody in the whole room starts cheering for everybody that's walking out virtually. See, I think it's cool to do it that way versus have everybody that's on virtual land cheering for the people that are in the room. And it just kind of turns it around. So, because it makes somebody think, oh yeah, I got to get my blinky ring on. I'm going to sit down. We're going to tune in because I live in, California, and this is a reunion for Oklahoma or something.
What's really interesting and really, really simple, but was also exceptionally captivating last week, for instance, when we had Bonnie from MDA on, champion fundraiser, absolute champion in the space. And she said the same thing about gifts. And it's not that we're anti-gifts, because we've done it all. We've sent 20 cases of wine to 20 sponsors before at an event for them, and it worked, right? That's fine. However, Bonnie has been doing this for decades, and said, I will pick up the phone and thank someone. I will pick up the phone and ask them how they are. So we're just talking about literally just about engagement and acknowledgement is what Jason said. And that's super powerful, Mary Jean. So it's the acknowledgement that's really, really the gold. It doesn't necessarily have to be the bottle of wine, because I'm sure, and I'm projecting assumption here, but I'm assuming those folks have received bottles of wine before, right? What they would probably like to hear, they'd probably like to hear acknowledgement that they sent 5 kids to camp, and how grateful you are, and how grateful those families and those children are. I think that's probably where the gold is, right? So,
well, if somebody can make a gift like that,
and the blinky ring idea is great. And the blinky ring.
Well, if somebody can write a check for $5,000 and not miss it, there's nothing that you're going to be able to give them that's going to be over the top that they can't go buy for themselves. So they're not buying, a blinky ring or a case of wine or anything like that. It's a nice thank you. Those are great things to have as thank you gifts. But at the end of the day, the reason they're tuning in is because you've communicated what your mission is, and you've asked for their help and their support, and they're tuning in to support you.
Diana said, you also want to show that you're a good steward of their money. Individuals donate to support your mission and programs. I 100% agree. And Jason gives me a hard time about this all the time. My generation, I'm 30 now. Well, we give differently than some people in the past. You guys might, some people will donate to one organization and they have it all budgeted out, whereas I will see something on social media about horses or puppies or, kids going to camp and they need scholarships. I will just, oh my gosh, I really want these kids to go to camp. And so I'm just going to give it. And I don't ever really get anything back, but it just makes me feel good knowing that I helped, so people are, if the mission is good and someone can tell me about their mission and pull on my heartstrings a little bit, I'm definitely going to sign up and say, hey, what can I do to help? So even if it's $50, $100 or whatever.
I have a question that Janice keeps on coming with the great question. So I have one for you, Jason, about this. And Morgan, you can definitely share too. But there was another question about what's the first thing you should do. And you said communicate the mission and the event. That also kind of bleeds into, you want to communicate early and often, correct? Then make the decision, we're going hybrid, communicate early, often, and branded is what we found that works. That's so splendid, right? A branded link so people aren't thinking it's spammy and this, that, and the other thing is really, really big. So that kind of ties into that. Janice had a question I think is really good, obviously, about hybrid formats. In shopping for an auctioneer, is there anything specific we need to look for when it comes to finding someone effective in the hybrid format? Jason, can you speak to that, and Morgan as well, please?
Yeah. You want to go first, Morgan? Just because you've seen a lot of auctioneers.
Yeah, which, I mean, you just want to find from someone who has been around this for, a very long time, but I'm kind of like still on the outside of the auctioneers. Like, they're just a different animal. I love them. I love watching them work. You just want someone that can work the room and just engage in people. And especially with a hybrid event, if you have someone that can just remember to be like, hey, virtual and kind of bring them back, which most of them are going to be good about that. But really just someone that can get the crowd pumped up. Like, you want some good energy. There's only been a couple of times where I've been at an auction or I've seen something and the auctioneer just has no pizzazz at all. And it's all numbers and it's kind of monotone. And, you kind of want someone with some flair if you can find it. So that's kind of my...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folks. Tony Wisely's on here. Mark West is on here, works with us, and we've had some other great auctioneers that are working the benefit. And we appreciate everything that they do. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm not saying anything about, but what I've seen is about the hybrid specifically. There's a skill in working with a camera. There is a specific skill set. Having worked as a pro car auctioneer, been on the stage and seeing all that stuff, there's a big difference between walking around a room and, like I'm looking at the room and I'm over here and, talking to this person and hey, and hey, 15, 16, 1700, 1800, 1900, up about $2,000. There's a big difference between that, because I'm looking out in the room and then focusing on the camera. Because it gets kind of weird because you start looking away and down and over. And, for auctioneers, we feed off that. We feed off that energy in the room and the stage. So virtual it's really, really important. This is where I think that the difference is in picking an auctioneer. And if they've had stage experience, live, experience, and virtual experience, where it really comes together, is when they can look out there in the audience and then they turn and look in the camera and say, Mary Jean, you've been bidding on this. You almost owned it for a little bit. I've got $5,000 right over here with Fred. Mary Jean, it's me and you. And having that ability, because a lot of times in the auction world, they get caught up in the deal and they forget that they've got somebody online, or because they're not used to doing it. It's not. Now, that's not saying the case even if they're not a professional benefit auctioneer, they're just they're used to doing online bidding. So when I say that, I don't want to paint anybody in a corner, but I would just ask those questions. How many events have you done? Have you been doing it? I've got some friends who are world-class auctioneers. They are fantastic. You put them in front of a camera and they really have a hard time. Then I've also got, there's some world-class benefit auctioneers. You go put them out there, to sell tractors, and they're car auctions, and they can't, they're lost. So, it's really in the eye of the beholder in a lot of ways. Having have sold everything from $1 million airplanes to dollar boxes of junk, and done a lot of benefit auctions and seen it go from very, very manual all the way up to the current time. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's not something that happens overnight, but at the same time, can they communicate with a camera and can they communicate in the stage? That's really what's going to be. And then let them be it. It's not as critical for a hybrid. So if you've got somebody that's been doing your auction for the last 10 years and you really like her or you really like him and they've been doing great, but they didn't do any virtual events, it's okay. They're going to be all right. Because really, I think Morgan would agree with this. They need to work the room first and the camera second. because the camera and the bidding, people are watching virtual land. It's like watching a reality show and they get to bid. So, you know,
Especially
Tony's got
if it's the same
Tony's got a
auctioneer and
great deal.
same
Ask
event.
for video samples. I don't think it's not as important to have that camera experience in the hybrid world as it is in the virtual world. So if you're doing an event that's straight virtual, you better have somebody that understands how to see a camera. But if you're doing it a hybrid, it's not such a critical piece. And, call somebody and say, who have you worked for? What organizations have you done? Do you have any film? Can I, this is a crazy thing. I've been doing this for 30 years. You know how many people have actually asked me to auction for them? 0. I cannot remember one single time that anybody's ever asked me to auction for them. But they may have heard about me and, what other events have you done? What, who have you worked with? And then pick up the phone and call somebody. Say, hey, I know that, who worked in somebody, maybe a donor. You've got a donor that that went to this other event, 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and they know who this person is. And they go, yeah, I know Tony. He did a heck of a job, and that's how you're going to hear that kind of stuff come out. And that's where that's just my best recommendation. Recommendation's everything. You could have the guy that's a world-class bid caller, and he, just like Morgan said, but he's got, he's used to sitting up there selling cattle for 12 hours at a time, and he's got no personality on stage. You got to have somebody that's got some personality to engage and entertain, because it's a different game. And so those are the things that I would suggest. I hope that helps. It's kind of
last call for questions, because we're winding down. Any last minute questions? We've had some great questions from everyone. I really appreciate it. And great sharing, you two. Thank you so much. It's been great. Any other questions? Last minute stuff. We're going to draw a winner for an item that can be used at your next hybrid event. Does it have to be a hybrid event? But
no, it does not. It could be anything. So it can be anything. So I'm going to get this pulled up.
All right.
And here we go. We're going to get this going.
Morgan, any closing thoughts? Not to put you on the spot, but any closing?
Just a recap. Just make sure you're marketing it. If you're going to have a hybrid stuff, definitely focus on the live. The virtual part, comes second, but you still want to make sure that the auctioneer talks to your, get that confidence monitor, being able to call out, oh, hey, Tony, it's your turn. That's huge. That every time I see that, it's really cool to watch the live bids come in like that. So if you can, figure out a way to do that, find a software that just works for you. If you can find some kind of customer service rep or somebody like that who can kind of help you if you're not tech savvy. I know that I've helped clients, they're a little bit older and they don't know the first thing about technology. So if you can kind of have someone maybe on your team, maybe you have someone else kind of work the software for you so that you can focus on going and finding the sponsorships and stuff like that. Don't spend too much time on the, quirky software of it. It's still going to be a good live event. But yeah, if you ever have any questions, you guys can always reach out. I'll try to give, even if you're not our clients, I try to be that wealth of knowledge.
We're happy to share all this information free of charge. We're super easy to reach. We say this all the time, but we really, really mean it. Morgan at hjfundraising.com. You can reach out to her at any time. Jason at hjfundraising.com. You probably don't want to talk to me because I don't have nearly as much experience as those two, but I'm Trevor at hjfundraising.com. Super easy to find us, obviously. And we want to help. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're using our items. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're using the best software in the market, our software. Just kidding. But that being said, we pride ourselves on this. This is really, we keep saying experience share. It is a buzz term, but it's real because no one's truly an expert in this space. We say it every week. It was a bad vessel that brought us here. But what's coming out of this has been really spectacular, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's our take on it. And we're very bullish on the efficacy of these programs and these events. And it's not the end of the world, even if you're flying by the seat of your pants. So we can help. So
if I could give one last parting thought, please, the email,
HJfundraising.com. Yeah.
There you go. And it's Morgan, Jason, Trevor. Keep your mission first. All the stage presence, all the shows, all the cool software, all that stuff, that is all secondary to your mission. Donors respond to mission. Get that down. If you guys, and if you have any questions about this, we've done quite a few. We've got all this stuff up on YouTube. We've done these webinars about it. If you have a question about, how do I communicate that, give us, shoot me an email. We'll set up a call. I'll help you
Happy to.
get that done, because that's really, really important right now. You guys, please keep that first. All this other stuff doesn't matter. Okay. I've got to draw a winner. I've got it drawn. And here's who it is. And then we'll say bye, because we always get you guys out of here within an hour. We'll be back here. Oh, let me just tell you real quick before I do that.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to get this out quick. And I promise you, I'll get the deal on the right day when we send out the invite. I won't screw it up like I did this week. This is going to be about cryptocurrency and how billions of dollars are being donated in crypto, and how you and your organization can access those donations. It's a really fascinating deal. It's something completely different out of, deal, but we've got a guy who is a pro. I'll put all the stuff about it. He's got this incredible way he understands how this stuff works and
I'll
can
give it
explain
away right now. It's Elon Musk. That's
Elon's going to be on here.
I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. It's Elon Musk.
So anyway, there's a guy that just donated $1 billion in Ethereum, which doesn't mean anything to me, but that's what he did, $1 billion worth. But you have to be able to receive it in crypto. You can't take dollars. Now you take the crypto and convert it to dollars, but you got to be able to take it. So anyway, that's we'll have that out there. Yeah. The winner is Janelle Taylor. Everybody give a big hand.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here, Janelle. We've got an experience for you to use in your next fundraiser to raise more money, and we hope that you'll join us here next week.
Right on. Awesome. Yeah.
Morgan, thank you so much for being here, Morgan.
Thanks,
thank
Morgan.
you for taking time.
You rock. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming.
Everyone.
We'll see you next Thursday. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.